Hey guys, this is Shaft with the Clinic Casting Crew. This is part 2 of our observing streaming tutorial. Coulter was just with you guys on the streaming side of things. We had a couple of technical errors as far as sharing screens, so we decided to do a separate video here for the observing portion. I'm just going to go ahead and recap what we said. Initially, the most important thing for an observer is to have map awareness. So you should always be looking at the minimap. I just want to throw that out there very much initially. Now, why do you want to have a dedicated observer? That's the concept of a three-man team, a dedicated observer plus 2 casters. Well, it gives the mouse a voice because the observer can, say, highlight a particular battle. As you can see here, we have like couple of roaches chasing down SCVs. We can watch as the SCVs are killed. Say this one gets killed, it's gonna disappear out of this control group. This one gets killed, so on and so forth. And that's just something a caster, because they're trying to observe the game and talk, isn't going to have the presence of mind to do. If they are, they're like godlike human beings. But for us average users, having a dedicated observer brings in a visual element rather than just auditory. We are sensory creatures, so the more that we can the more senses we can bring into a presentation, the better off we are going to be. What we want to do is show a bunch of different techniques that you can utilize as a observer. But the first thing I want to point out is that it's really important to have your own set of caster hotkeys and observer hotkeys. I use a particular setup with observing. Here's my hotkeys: shaft camera as opposed to shaft LAN. And that basically means that, you know, I can use my 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 0 key to be production, units lost, income, whatever. Now, rather than, you know, a control group, I can have WASD be something like this. I can modify things that wouldn't be so useful in the game, but here in this particular situation are completely... What is up with my pop filter? Not sure what's going on, but are completely invaluable. So with all of that, you know, pointed out, let's take a look at this interface, because this interface makes a lot of the other tabs kind of obsolete. Okay, I think I got my pop filter fixed, maybe. No. Fuck it. Alright, so I'm going to stop playing with the pop filter now. Alright, so take a look. Income tab, 840 income here for Blue Zerg, 840 here. Units lost, it's right here, lost army, compared to lost totals. You know, same thing here. So basically, the only tab you ever will need if you're using a GameHard interface like this is this production tab. And that makes it a lot easier to focus on other things like camera angles. Now, the very first trick I want to teach you guys is what's called the drag scroll. Say that there is a battle happening, and you want to follow these roaches as, you know, they're chasing down this orbital command, or, you know, just get a bigger, wider shot, for instance. That's what I'm using right here. It's a very smooth. It's a really awesome technique. Now, I'm going to go back here to the battle with the Marines and the roaches. That should be about right there. Alright, so here are our roaches right here, and say I want to pan over, say, actually let's back it up one more time. Alright, so here we go. Go ahead and put this in some... Alright, so we've got the roaches coming across the map, and as you can see, this is a little bit slower. This is not the drag scroll. This is actually me using my arrow keys, which I have bound to WASD, which are standard FPS hotkeys. It's just on the left-hand side of the keyboard. As you can see under controls, I have my keyboard scroll speed set to 5%. That's because I don't use the arrow keys in the real game, but here it creates just a really nice effect. Here we go. We have the roaches coming in the side now, and watch as they progress. You've just got this really, really smooth. See, this is a drag scroll, and this is just chasing them along. You have two different options for panning. Now, one other option that you could use, using my handy dandy back button, is to hit the follow button. I have that bound to F. That's also another really good one. Hit F again to unbind it, by the way. There's a couple of different options here. So each one presents its own special effect. I use F most often with scouting drones and that sort of thing. Something else to consider are your introductions. So say this was the very beginning of the game and we're doing introductions. So here in the top left hand corner of Belshir Vestige, representing Team Acer, we have our blue Zerg, it's Sella! So I zoom in and kind of scroll the screen to the left. Now for me that's going to be Q to spin it this way, E to spin it this way. W is up, A, S, D. So again, kind of standard FPS hotkeys. This would be a strafe, in other words. You can actually create a lot of good effects. So say I started it here, I'm doing my introduction, in the top left hand corner, so on and so forth. Creates this kind of spinning effect. Actually, I didn't do it so hot there. I mean, you can kind of see how that's pretty cool. Or, you know, you could zoom in like this. I've seen a lot of different things done. Now, this is also pretty awesome in battle, so let's get a nice big old battle queued up here. Looks like we've got some units moving out. Cool. I'm gonna pause it right here. Alright, so say there's about to be a battle happening. Hopefully there is. Here in just a second. Overseer sitting in a changeling, and looks like there's no battle. Just moving out across the map. Alright, waiting for a battle so I can show you guys the zoom ins on a battle. This is just a random replay I picked up off the internet, so I don't know exactly the timings or anything. Alright, so a little bit of a drop. Let's come here. Back it up just a couple seconds. Alright, so bring this down to faster speed. Alright, so we got this drop coming in, Mutalisks doing their thing. Now, I could say I didn't want to try following this medevac with... Where is the medevac? Okay, here's the medevac. Now, I could be trying to follow it with my arrow keys. I could hit F and follow it that way. I could drag scroll, but I'd say F is probably the best one there. Now he's dropping off his Marines, and we're about to have an engagement. So zoom in, shows the hugeness of the Mutalisk, overwhelming numbers. It shuts down that drop easy. So you can see how that adds a dramatic effect. Now you can do that in all kinds of battles, that sort of thing. Not enough observers are doing that, and it just makes a huge difference. You really want to fit as much as you can on the screen. So say you've got like lines of siege tank, marine, just moved out across the map. Actually, this is going to be mine marauder, but this should be a pretty good one to zoom in on. I'm going to show you guys a little bit larger scale of a battle. Just waiting on the engagement point. Alright, so here we go. Back it up about 10 seconds. And here it goes. Alright, so I'm using my drag scroll to keep up with this army. I know it's going to be the Zerg that attacks into the Terran here. So, boom, here come the Banelings. And I'm just trying to fit as much on screen as possible. So you can see how this, just go back here to where the battle first begins. Alright, so he's clearing tumors. And this time I'm going to spin it the other way. I spun it this way, so you saw them coming in kind of like this. Check it out on this side. So here you can kind of do it either way. Actually, I think this might even be a better camera angle, but you can actually see the difference. You know, you can fit a lot more onto the screen than necessarily you could have otherwise. So, one thing about screen space. This top bar that I've got here doesn't have to be there. With a Game Heart interface, hold Control-Shift-0, that disappears. Alright, so we've covered zooming for battles and all our panning. We've done the follow command. Alright, camera hotkeys. Cool. So, your camera hotkeys, some players use them in the game, most players don't. But, create location, I've got Shift F1, F2, F3, F4, F1, F2 for jump to. Pretty easy. Alright. So, this is a pretty cool little effect that I like to use quite a bit. I'm just going to show it to you guys and then explain it. Alright, so. Alright. Let's say, you know, I just had my camera here and I wanted to show a natural. Say there wasn't anything actually going on in the middle. And I wanted to just transition over to the natural, show a logical progression or something like that. A really cool effect that I would use is this right here. Go ahead and line my mouse up here on the mini-map. Hit F1, F2 here. Now, when you do that fast, it kind of just shows you that, you know, it's a big wide map. There's a lot going on. So that wasn't the most smooth one. Go ahead and line your mouse up. Boom. You can do it on the other side. Say you're here. Go ahead and line your mouse up. It's just a more complicated transition. It adds a little extra depth to your game. And if there's nothing going on, it kind of entertains the viewers. And that's really what you're going for. It can also be very useful because, well, hell, you've got a watchtower bound. There's always something going on at these watchtowers. That's F1, that's F3, and then I have the thirds of either player. So these turn out to be really useful hotkeys anyway, but then you've got that really cool effect. It is what it is, man. So one thing you always are going to want to do is to balance your sound during the games. Interesting. It just went to the loading screen. Alright, so you want to balance your sounds during the games. Say you're on Skype call, you're doing a 3-man team. First, you want to make sure you don't have anything muted. That's number one thing. Make sure everything in your streaming software is set to unmute. Then, you want to have a third party, that is a fourth person, go to your stream. You're going to stream and have your Starcraft music and sound on, as loud as you're going to have it in-game. And then have each of your casters compare to that and compare to themselves just by doing a sound test. Get the sounds balanced out properly because most people can adjust their microphone volumes. And once you have all that set up, then you're good to go because you've already had someone tell you, you know, your stream sounds good, so on and so forth. You're not going to be drowned out by the sound of Marines dying because sometimes you'll have people whispering like this and the Marines are like, ah! And you actually can't hear the casting. So that's just something you really, really want to be careful of. Also, when the game's over, don't forget to turn the sound off. It's Control M, Control S. It's really unprofessional to be in the loading screen and actually be able to hear StarCraft, so that's something you want to avoid as well. Also, never forget to switch scenes because, you know, you saw right there, I have a scene switcher which somehow switched over to the loading screen. Now imagine if I did this whole presentation on that loading screen without realizing it. Always, always, always make sure your scenes are properly set up. The best way to do that is to have a second monitor just dedicated to that. Alright, so let's take a look at the Game Heart overview at this point. You can pull that up in the interface by going to F11. Control-Shift-O, as it mentions there, turns on the Replay Observer tools. That's that bar at the top I was telling you about. Control-W is supposed to make this down here disappear. However, in my modified version, I disabled that because, well, quite frankly, this is economic enough on screen real estate for me. I like to have that information there, and I don't want to hit Control W by accident, make it disappear. So I just disabled it, but that's completely up to you whether you want to keep that. Shift L is not functional in this version. However, this is an outdated version. I know Coulter has one that works on. So I'm going to be updating this here shortly. As far as my version, go check out the most updated one for that. It's also, a really cool feature. Control Shift G. You see there's no control groups here. When I select a Marine, control groups pop up. If I don't want that, Control Shift G. Now, as you can see, when I select a Marine, it blocks all this information. So one hotkey I have bound, instead of Escape to clear Marines, which is still there, I use right click. So it's a real simple reveal of information there. Something else that's useful to know about GameHeart. Control Shift S, map score. So you see how when I hit the button it moves this right here over? This becomes a best of 3. Say I want Sella to be behind a game. I just gave Gamma Sec Home a point by doing Control 1. The bottom one is Control, Shift is the top one. So this would be like game point or something. Say this is a best of 7. Control Shift at the same time, hit 7. Okay, that was all that. And if you wanted to make these racecon icons disappear for any reason, you would just hit Control Shift R, but that's something I disabled as well just because I didn't want that feature. So, with all that said, that's kind of everything I wanted to cover. These are just basic techniques. You can definitely elaborate on these, but I just wanted to give you guys some ideas. This is something every observer is going to do different, just like StarTale Heaven is different than StarTale Legend. They're from the same team. They're both professional observers. However, they have completely different styles despite one training the other. So, it kind of is what it is. But hopefully this has at least sparked some ideas in you young, fresh, upcoming observers, and giving you old hats some new things to work with. This is Shaft of the Clanic Casting Crew signing out and wishing you guys an amazing Season 3 of the UASL. Have a good one.